I wrote to them all. Almost none responded. And then there was this one library, a very big one in LA, that said, your music is pretty good. Let's have a chat. So that's basically that's basically what they said. Let's have a chat. And that's from that conversation, that Zoom meeting, came an entire album with that library. Yeah. Right. So basically, online networking as well is, again, an important part.
What is happening, everybody, and welcome back to the 52 Qs podcast, your weekly insight into all things production and library music. My name is Dave Kropf, and it is so good to be with you today. And if you find this video helpful, then why don't you give it a thumbs up here on YouTube or a 5-star review on your podcast app? This really does help folks find us. Either way, be sure to subscribe because I talk about library and production music specifically every single week. Today's episode wouldn't be possible without the amazing support of our family, friends, and neighbor subscribers of 52 Qs, who not only keep the community alive and thriving, but as members, they also get access to bonus perks like live streams, Q breakdowns, Zoom feedback sessions, hundreds of hours of video archives, and the opportunities to submit to real music libraries. So if this sounds like something you're interested in and you're looking for a community of supportive, like-minded composers and you're ready to make a serious push into the world of production music, then why don't you join us over at 52qs.com. It is free to sign up and memberships start at around $4 a month. So today is week 16. I think last week, I got my weeks mixed up. I think I said it was week 16. It just really all kind of blurs together. It's been a pretty good week. The afterglow of the family reunion is still settling in. It feels really quiet around the house, but we've started making some progress in setting up meetups all over the world, actually. And in the next couple of weeks, we're going to announce a meetup in Germany because we have a large German and Swiss contingent, and we've got a meetup happening there. And so I will say again, if you're a member of the 52 Qs community, and you're interested in playing host to a meetup, again, it doesn't have to be at your house or anything. You can meet up at a restaurant or go bowling or whatever. Just the idea of meeting in person, I think, is really super important. Speaking of meeting in person, if you are going to the PMC, I would love to see you and meet you. I know we have a handful of folks going to the Production Music Conference in September. I booked my hotel and my flight just yesterday. I am flying in Monday afternoon and flying out Friday afternoon. And I don't know, do I have an afternoon at Universal Studios Hollywood in my future? I'm not sure. I know the hotel kind of looks over Universal, but if you are planning on going to the Production Music Conference in September, then I'd love to meet you. Come up, shake my hand. I'll be the dude in the white glasses. As far as other things going on this week, just more writing in the middle of this album of European dramedy cues, and we're going to listen to another one, a Greek dramedy, which sounds fun, like a Greek drama, a Greek dramedy cue here called Sat All You Got, as in Tzatziki. That's coming up, but also had a couple of plays at the Masters tournament. Had 2 plays, one flyover of hole 18 and a flyover of hole 13 for a couple of minutes of air, and just amazes me. This is my 10th year having music played during Masters coverage. And I don't know. I want to make sure that I never take that for granted. I'm as excited maybe not as excited. My very first placement I ever got was during the 2015 Masters tournament and during a pre-tape, the Jim Nance Remembers feature. And that was a real life-changing moment for me because I had been pushing into production music for, almost a year, maybe 2 years leading up into that. But I remember where I was. I remember the moment. I remember the slow motion jumping up and down feeling of that's my music on TV. And even now, when I get air, I have that that little buzz, that little excitement when a cue sheet comes in or a royalty statement or tune set, and I see a hit and I hear my music, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's my stuff on television. And not everybody gets to do that. And so I don't ever want to take it for granted. And I think as soon as I do, I'm giving you permission out there, 52 Qs folks or internet strangers in the YouTube comments. If I take it for granted, call me out on it, because it is a big deal and not everybody gets to do it. And it's a lot of hard work with a lot of moving parts. And there are a lot of kind of gates you have to go through and hoops you have to jump through to get from music from my head onto a computer in a room over a garage or in a bedroom or in an office or whatever, to get onto television with Jim Nance doing voiceover on the Masters tournament. So as I reflect on 10 years of placements, I feel really fortunate. I'm very thankful. And a huge shout out to Rob Astor of RR Hot, who has been my guide and my mentor, my sounding board, patience of a saint, and just really appreciate him. And I want to personally thank him. And I also want to thank Danny McIntyre and Steve Cox for kind of trusting me and seeing something in my work even before it was fully formed, right? The eye for potential. And their mentoring and coaching really established the foundation of what we are doing here at 52 Qs, which is helping composers get better by focusing on the people, focusing on the person. It's a very holistic type of approach. And that's what we're doing here at 52 Qs. Whether you're a subscriber or not, whether you're a paid member, or just know that that's what we are doing here. It's not about the hustle. It's not about, I've got 6-figure syncs or anything like that. The idea is that, which is cool and important, and some people respond to that motivation. So I'm not hating anybody, but what we're doing here is that we are focusing on people first, becoming a person of integrity, and through that comes the skill and the talent and the success. That's kind of what I believe. I hope that makes sense, and that's not too woo-woo, but yeah. And again, that was made even more apparent last week when we had the family reunion. I'm still super riding high off of that, obviously. So once again, a huge thanks to Rob Astor, Steve Cox, and Danny McIntyre of RR Hot and Unified Sounds, and all those crews, all those folks on that crew for really believing in me. All right. As far as the cue that I want to show you this week, this is a Greek dramedy cue, meaning that it is dramedy with pizzicato plucky strings, and I'm doing a whole album of bringing kind of European cafe elements. So my French cues have accordion, my Italian cues have mandolin, and my Greek cues have bouzouki. But I don't own a bouzouki, but I kind of can fake one using some dulcimers and some other sounds and some layered sounds along with a melodica impersonating an accordion. So here is Sat All You Got. That was Sat All You Got. For you family, friends, and neighbor subscribers, if you want to see this cue be written from scratch, you can check out the archive of this in the composing live streams because I wrote this live last week. And for you family and friends subscribers, I have a cue breakdown on this coming up tomorrow. It is always a good day when I can welcome to the podcast one of us, right? So someone who is on the same path. I mean, we've had, publishers and libraries and all of that, and that's great, and I'm going to keep having them. But to be able to come alongside somebody who's kind of in the trenches with us, kind of working out a living in the production music space is always a treat, and I am so happy to welcome Jelle Dittmar to the podcast. Jelle, how are you, my friend?
Doing fine. How about you?
I'm doing great. As we are recording this, we're coming into the holiday season, and before we started recording, we were talking. We were lamenting how we have to work really, really hard to make space for having a few days off, and so I really hope you're able to get a break here soon, man.
I'm trying to. I mean, it's especially at the end of the year, you basically have all these projects that you didn't do in the rest of the year. You're basically piling them up for the rest of the year. So December is always very hectic. And then January, February is a little bit of a slower month. But I'm doing fine. And indeed, the holidays are coming up. I hope you're spending time in the holidays as well with your family.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about you, but I have a hard time kind of turning it off, right? It's just my brain is always thinking on it. I mean, it's
always music.
Yeah, even when I'm watching like YouTube videos, if I sit down to watch YouTube videos recreationally, first of all, my algorithm feeds all these like production music videos and guitar tutorials and everything. But even when I'm like, you know what, I'm not going to be in the studio. I've got my laptop like in the living room and I'm working on Omnisphere patches. Do you kind of have the same problem, just shutting it down?
At some point, yeah. When I'm just in the living room and I'm just watching on my on YouTube, I always get music or I get the newest album releases from soundtracks that I'm checking out because I'm a huge soundtrack collector on vinyls as well.
Oh wow!
And I'm really trying to do, especially this year, trying to find a better balance between my work and my personal life because. At some point, I just want to do this for the rest of my life. And if I'm constantly working, burnout is quick around the corner. So you really need to be aware of that. So that's basically what I'm trying to do. Have a part in the day where I'm just fully focusing on my private life. And then a part of the day where I'm just completely working and cranking out a lot of tracks.
Yeah. And how deliberate are you? Because I know with me, I have on my calendar, right? I have a Google Calendar says nope. And it's actually called Sacred Dave and Shannon times. And my wife's name's Shannon. And so nothing can, no clients can book times there or anything. So how are you making sure that those sacred times stay sacred?
I have a strict Google Calendar. So just like you. So I always told to myself before I got into the music world, I don't want an office job. I don't want to work 9 to 5. But I found it the ideal way to find a balance between work and personal life, private life. So basically, I wake up at 7 and go for a lunch or go for a breakfast and have some coffee, read some emails maybe. And then at 9, I'm starting composing until, 5 in the afternoon. And then absolutely, when I'm done writing music, as soon as the clock hits 5, I just completely stop. And when emails come in, I still read them and maybe reply to them if it's a very good email. But if it's not, then I'm just parking it for the day after that. And right now, that balance works because I'm doing a lot of library work and a lot of game work sometimes as well. And right now, that balance works really well. But it could be very well that in the next couple of years, I'm so busy that I need to restructure that balance a little bit more. It really depends on how busy I am.
Do you find yourself like what do you do recreationally? I had a hard time, and I still have a hard time listening to music recreationally. I feel like that's kind of been burned out of me. And so other people will say, yeah, I put on some music and I can't do that. My brain starts working. I can't watch sports because I write cues that go up in sports. I can't watch sports recreationally. What are some of the things that you're finding to help kind of unplug out of that mode?
Well, I do listen for my entertainment to music very often just to get inspired. I'm a big fan of 80s rock music or pop music. So Queen, Genesis. I really grew up with that kind of music. So I always listen to that when I just want to wind down. But other things for entertainment is I play a lot of video games. So role-playing games like, for example, Cyberpunk. I really love that game, especially after the latest updates. So I'm a big gamer. I play on a console, on the PlayStation. A fun fact is basically that the first PlayStation is 3 weeks older than I am. So in 1949 or 1994, the first PlayStation came out, and I basically grew up with that console. So I'm playing a lot of video games for when I want to wind down. But also when it's nice weather here in the Netherlands, we have beautiful nature over here. And I'm just going to take a stroll, or I'm going to take my bike and ride across the fields here. So yeah, basically to do anything but make music.
I do have to say, and I should have mentioned, you are in the Netherlands, right? And I've spent some time in the Netherlands, in Haarlem specifically. Absolutely gorgeous, and I was instantly jealous of how accessible bicycling is over there. Yeah. Unlike here in Florida, I mean, I can kind of bike around my neighborhood, but if I go on the main road, I'm literally taking my life into my own hands. So Netherlands has biking figured out.
Biking is really a very nice thing to do here because we have bicycle lanes basically everywhere. Even in the city centers, we have bicycle lanes, and even outside of the cities, between cities and villages, we have bicycle lanes. And when I went to LA in September this year, I tried to go for a bike ride, and boy, yep. Riding Venice Beach, that was an experience.
It was cool to hear you also talk about video games, because that would be my thing. I'm also into role-playing games. I'm into MMOs. I'm still a hardcore cool. World of Warcraft person. And I get together once a week with my best friend from middle school, and we get together and we play for just a couple of hours. You know, it's super slow. We're not competitive or anything. But yeah, video games, I'm realizing, is my kind of recreational thing.
Yeah.
And oddly enough, because we're doing voice chat, the music is turned off. I wonder if there's a correlation there.
Maybe. Could be.
You know, we mentioned that you are over in Amsterdam, and you found a lot of success. You whether it be film scoring, working on games, but a lot of production music, some 500 published production music tracks that are kind of bouncing around the industry and getting a lot of love. But doesn't being not in the U.S., or even more specifically, not in L.A., does that provide its own set of challenges? And if so, what do international composers do to kind of overcome that?
Well, the most common thing to overcome it is basically move to LA. But
that's the nuclear option, right?
That's basically the option. But I really found out that it's not really necessary, because we have, especially after the COVID period, these software that we're using right now for the podcast, they are also available for scoring with live musicians, scoring in a studio. Basically, we had audio movers. Now we have another software that's popping around the corner that I actually used 2 weeks ago with a recording session in LA. Where you don't even need audio movers, a secondary link to capture the high quality sound of the mixing table in the studio. It's all basically in the web browser, and you don't need Zoom as an additional video browser. So basically, one of the challenges for me is that I have the time zones. Obviously, the time zones are a big thing. When they are in the middle of the day at 2 p.m., for example, then I'm lying in my bed and just trying to get some sleep after a very, very busy day. And then if they have a problem, that it can happen that they call me or email me very quickly, and then that I need to get out of bed and fix some stems, for example. That absolutely happens. But actually, the people I work with in LA are very, very understanding. And when I say at this time of day in LA until this time, I'm out, and they are for now very understanding. So there's no issue actually for me whatsoever. But if it's really, really a big problem that needs to be tackled really quickly, of course, I'm getting out of bed, grab some coffee, and just get the stuff done. But right now, I actually don't find a lot of issues working with parties in LA apart from the time zones.
Okay, and so the technology has come along in communication, and not to mention that they can make a request and then they go to bed and they wake up and it's done, right?
It's done.
It gets
absolutely.
done.
That's also
overnight.
one of the benefits. Yeah, absolutely. It's also one of the benefits from the time difference between the Netherlands and Los Angeles. So basically, when they are done with the day, my day starts. So if they have a problem that needs to be fixed, I can fix it in their evening, and then it's done as well. So they can also be working into your advantage.
Yeah. But what about, for international folks, and this applies to everybody, but especially international folks who can't necessarily go to LA, can't, the PMC production music conference is fantastic, but it's a haul for me from Orlando. I could only imagine from like Frankfurt or Amsterdam or whatever. So what are ways that you have found overcoming networking challenges and relationship building?
Well, when there are networking opportunities here in the Netherlands, I go there, and there is this big game developers conference called Gamescom in Cologne. I don't know if you heard it, but they're basically the biggest right now since E3 has been closed for business.
I know that blows my mind, by the way, that E3
that blows my mind as well.
20 years, it just stops. But anyway.
It stops and they're just done. But Gamescom is actually, apart from a public event, there's also a lot of game developers from across the world, just like GDC in San Francisco. They are also coming to Gamescom in Cologne because it's the biggest gaming event of Europe. And so basically for those kind of network events, I go there. But indeed, for production music, there is not very much in Europe regarding those kind of network sessions. So you're basically, if you can spare the time and can spare the money to go to LA, I highly recommend going there because I think it was because I went to LA in September. I was part of a Dutch sync mission for composers in the media sector. And we went to LA, and the amount of networking I did in just a week and the connections I did in that week is just astounding. So basically, if you can afford going to LA, of course, it cannot hurt to just go there and just network and talk to people you already know, for example, through online, because I have a lot of contacts with or a lot of email messages with the publishers that I'm working for. So when I was there, I just made appointments with those publishers, grabbed some can of stroopwafels, the biscuits here in the Netherlands, just give them that just little present like, thank you for the opportunity. And you would be surprised how people will remember you then. I mean, it can also be that they don't remember you at all, but it's the gesture, and it's unconsciously it does something with that connection. It's a little bit psychologically. So
they're going to remember the guy who brought the snacks, right?
Yeah, and it was in this can. And it was in this can, so now they are collecting the plectrums that I lost in the studio. They're collecting it in there, and every time they get a plectrum in the studio, they think of me maybe. So, but just go to LA and to just experience firsthand the networking and how the industry works there. For me, were phenomenal to experience, and I learned so much just by being there 1 week, being in that vibe, and meeting with some very high library professionals as well.
I think the good old-fashioned networking skills, those chops, like bringing a gift, or I have a publisher who sends Christmas cards, right? He sends Christmas cards to all of his composers, and he assigned composers in India, he signed composers in Tokyo, he signed composers from all over the world, and he sends them Christmas cards. And these are folks that I've worked with, and they're telling me, oh my gosh, I got, and it had like 4 stamps on it. It was handwritten. And that goes so long, because in our digital LinkedIn kind of Facebook like world, it's easy to kind of, it's easy to forget that there's a human being on the other side of this relationship. Yeah. And human beings need tending like fine plants, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, basically, if you're just not following up on emails, I mean, you are talking about how we are so much caught up in the digital age right now. Mm-hmm. If you do not put in the extra efforts to maintain that network, you can easily become just another name in a very, very long email list of 1,000 or million other names, and you're simply forgotten. So trying to maintain a relationship digitally, but also in the real world, is also, I think, very important to maintain a very healthy career as a media composer or production music composer. Absolutely.
Yeah, and the way that you had a relationship that maybe started virtually through a Zoom session in the PMA, virtual networking events, and the groundwork that does. So when you do meet in person, and I had that experience when I went to the PMC last year. Some folks that I had only exchanged emails with, and maybe the occasional Zoom, but meeting them in person, there was like, you weren't starting from square one, right?
Yeah.
And so you were able to...
you already had laid the foundation, basically, and then you're just... Basically, if you've already laid the foundation with an email and then just you meet them, the conversation starter basically becomes so much more easier than if you would be in that room and just go to them and just shake their hands. Hi, I'm this and this, and then it makes it a little bit more easier.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I do believe that a 2-minute hallway conversation can do more for your career than the best crafted email.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's no surprise that you attend to these types of personal touches, because it's not just in your philosophy as a professional, but it's also in your philosophy as a composer, because one of the things about your music is a passion for live performers. And that seems to be a kind of a hallmark of your cues. You're always looking for that new kind of live thing. Can you talk a little bit about how you kind of came to that, and how you what's your approach to incorporating live elements in your cues?
Yeah, basically for me, it wasn't always like this, because 3 years ago when I was still at college, I always thought that I could do everything with plugins, like, for example, Spitfire Audio. I was there with the guys that just thought you can do everything with VSTs. Oh boy, how wrong were I? And when I went to one of the recording sessions at college at the SCE Institute in Amsterdam, and we were recording a real cellist that was playing in one of my cues with a virtual instrument, it made so much more difference, so much more impact than that robotic plugin. And since then, I've become a big advocate of recording as much live elements in your music as possible, because not only do you get more emotion, but you also get a more original sound. Because if you have a sample, for example, Spitfire's violins, they've already been recorded with a certain intention in mind. Mm-hmm. But when you're recording with a live musician that is playing your story, your music, and has that story, your music in mind, then he plays way differently than that virtual plugin would ever do. I hope I explain this correctly
that makes
understandably.
Total sense. Yeah.
So since then, and basically also it gives a very, very big advantage over AI as well, because you can do so much wacky stuff with real instruments that AI is still struggling to keep up with yet. I don't know how it will become in 5 years or so. But using real organic instruments has become a very big part of my sound palette. And I know that you are a big fan of the apprehension engine that I built with my dad together.
Yeah.
That's also a reason why I built that thing, because it's so... Every time you're just doing something, it's becoming another sound. It's becoming something weird. It's something wacky, and it just gives this edge to your music that you would never get with, for example, a VST. Even if you would make a VST plugin of the apprehension engine, it would not sound the same as if you have the real thing.
No, I love the way that you stated that. The fact that when the violinists are in the studio recording for Spitfire or 8DO or Soundpan or whatever, their intention is frozen in time, whatever that intention. But when the live violinist plays yours, your music is their intention, and that's a completely new thought that I hadn't considered. And I think that adds to the uncanny valley, right? That kind of the artifice that sample instruments have. All right, that's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to be chewing on that one for a while. So what would be your encouragement for folks maybe, who are wanting to do this? They recognize it and they're in total agreement. Yes, Jelle is totally right. I need to record instruments, but A, I'm broke, or B, I don't have access to the types of players that an accomplished composer might have, maybe they're early in their career or whatever. How do folks get started?
Well, if you're planning on getting some real instruments at the start, and when you're like me, you're very experimental music. I don't know if you can see it over there. There's a cello in the background that I bought. I cannot play it for the love of it. I cannot play a cello at all, but just having a cello bow and a cello together and just make some very weird sound. And this cello was not expensive. It's an electric cello from Thomann. It's in Harley Benton, and they are very, very cheap. So it doesn't sound good on classical music, but that's also not the intention that I have.
You're not a classical cellist.
No, absolutely not. So basically what I just do is I make one note at a time, and then when I need to record the other note, I'm just searching for an hour to the other note and then press record, and then I play it again. That's how I do it, but it already gives so much more uniqueness to your track, so much more liveliness, even if it's an electric cello. And basically for recording with real orchestras, I don't really have the advice on how to do that, because I was extremely lucky when I got to get a gig with a real orchestra. When it was the COVID pandemic, we were in the second lockdown here in the Netherlands. I was bored out of my mind. And I just thought to myself, I really want to record with live orchestras. So I was looking at Google, basically, which libraries were recording with real orchestras. And I believe it were a couple of dozen of them. I wrote to them all. Almost none responded. And then there was this one library, a very big one in LA, that said, your music is pretty good. Let's have a chat. So that basically that's basically what they said. Let's have a chat. And from that conversation, that Zoom meeting, came an entire album with that library. Yeah. Right. So basically, online networking as well is again an important part.
Yeah, I've as far as just putting your hands on an instrument, a poorly performed live instrument will sound better than a very expensive VST. And I have guitars on stuff in the wall here in the background that I can barely play, and I power chord tuning and faking it because I'm never going to perform that live, right? You just recently uploaded a video. I think you got a new Charango.
Yeah, Charango. I thought I bought a Ron Rocco because I love the music by Gustavo Santaolalla. I hope I pronounced the name correctly. I'm very bad with names, but so I probably messed this one up.
Totally.
But I thought I bought a Ron Rocco. It is handcrafted in Bolivia. And then they sent me a Charango. So I was like, oh, damn. But
it sounds really good. It sounds amazing.
It sounds really good. Weirdly enough, it sounds very, very close to a Ron Rocco. And maybe it's just my brain that's like, I don't know the difference between a Charango or a Ron Rocco. I know the difference, but I cannot hear it right now. When I compare it together, I do hear it a little bit. But basically that Charango, buying that kind of instrument, it's just have a new sound in your arsenal. It can already do so much. And I plugged this thing in with Portal from Output, the plugin. So it's basically a granular synthesizer that you can real-time trigger when you're playing through a microphone. And there's some weird stuff going in there. So it's that kind of experimentation is something that really inspires me as well when I'm composing music, because I really hate doing the same thing over and over and over again. It's the reason why I don't write any solo piano albums anymore.
You're just done.
I'm just done. At some point, it just became an office job.
Oh, wow, yeah.
So basically, buying a new instrument, buying a new plugin that's a little bit more different than the usual stuff, certainly really helps inspire me to do new stuff every time with my music.
Well, and it like you mentioned earlier, the apprehension engine. I'm absolutely fascinated by this. And what I'd like to do right now is I'm going to drop in a clip here and we'll put a link to this video of the apprehension engine that you made with your dad. So we're going to take a listen to this really quick.
He made it. I just delivered the materials because I have two left hands. I'm not a good constructionist. The full credit goes to my dad who built this one.
Okay, first of all, I want one. I want one of these things, and I'm like, I'm gonna look on Etsy, like, I wonder if eBay has one of these. But it's really fascinating. First of all, it's really cool that you made this with your dad, or you're connected with your dad to make it. I think that's super cool, and something that he made, that you performed, gets on TV. I mean, that's like a Hallmark special. There's a Christmas movie right there. But to talk about the apprehension engine, talk about the inspiration behind it, and how it's been going for you since you made it.
Well, basically, I got to know it through the video game The Callisto Protocol, which came out this year. I know it was last year. Last year, The Callisto Protocol came out. It was from the ex-developers from... what was it again? Dead Space.
Okay.
So they used the apprehension engine for its soundtrack. So that's how I got to know it. And then I said to my dad, I want to buy one of these. And we were looking them up, and the original inventor was commissioned by composer Mark Corvin, who composed The Lighthouse with Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson and The Witch. He used that one first in his compositions. And I was looking up at the inventor of the apprehension engine. And when I was looking at the website, I saw that you can actually buy them from this guy. And they were $10,000 when I looked at it. So very, very expensive. And my father, he said, well, maybe I can buy or I can build one. And we were looking up at some blueprints on some Facebook groups, because there are Facebook groups that have tried to build the apprehension engine. And basically the entire blueprint is just publicly available on those Facebook groups. There is a YouTube channel where a guy makes an apprehension engine from scratch. So you can just follow that tutorial on this, but basically what my father did. And then I just gathered the materials and he built it. And it's sounding absolutely killer every time I'm using it. Yeah.
Well, and what kind of miking technique are they? Contact mics? Are they like condensers? And what kind of post-production do you put on it?
The apprehension engine, the micings that we are using, the original one basically used 3 clip-on mics, or mics that you can fit against the wall.
I think those contact mics,
Yeah, contact mics. There are 3 of them in the original one. We basically have 4 of them because I ordered the wrong contact mics from Amazon. So we have 4, and basically we put up 2 against the front plate and then 2 on the ceiling. And basically every sound I make on the outside is getting picked up by those contact mics because the gain is pretty high. Mm-hmm. And then we also have a reverb tank from a guitar amplifier that's in there that generates sounds. And we have a guitar pickup, a sticker box guitar pickup. Mm-hmm. So we have 3 outputs that are going into my DAW. And that's basically how it's set up, how it makes sounds by those contact mics, the reverb tank, and the sticker box pickup.
Yeah. Definitely want one. I don't want one for $10,000. And when you look at it, I mean, no disrespect to the inventor, no disrespect for your dad. It doesn't necessarily look like a $10,000 instrument. I've seen some.
I'm not sure. I mean, I think they're gone down into price, but I think if you're going to Etsy, there are people that make these as well.
Gotcha. Yeah, I looked up water phones also, and and those can be really expensive, or like hong drums, all those kind of things.
Yeah.
But
I think it's also because it's new. It's new. It's interesting, and people just want it, and then they can basically ask anything for it. So it's new. They want it, and they have a gap in the market basically that they can fill.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned the developer for the game who also did Dead Space, and that is Jason Graves. So I went to college with Jason Graves, game composer.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, know him really well, and his wife and everything. And when he did Tomb Raider, they commissioned the sculpture, which was very similar. And it wasn't like a box like that. It was a metal sculpture that they had somebody in North Carolina build. And they actually built two of them. One of them is in the lobby of the game studio, and Jason has the other one. And it's you bow it and pluck it and everything. And he used that as the anchor for his soundtrack. So I think that studio is into those types of composers. So that's cool.
Awesome.
That's very cool.
I basically used it on an album that I made this year with composer Niels van der Leest, who is the composer behind Horizon, Forbidden West, and Zero Dawn, together with a couple of other composers for PlayStation. And he basically is a very, very good percussionist, very good with rhythmical music. And we were commissioned by this library. He wanted to do more with production music. So I said, well, we can maybe pitch an idea that we have. I'm not going to tell the idea. That's a surprise for next year when it comes out.
Nice.
It's insane. It was one of the most difficult albums I've ever worked on. But it was a nice challenge. And we very much used the apprehension engine, a lot of other very weird instruments, and just made a completely bonkers album with this library and with the live cellist that we recorded 2 weeks ago in the studios in LA. And it's such a joy and an inspiration to work with someone like that and work with an instrument like that. Yeah. It just elevates your productivity to the next level.
Well, because the people and the instruments are fueling your creativity. It's
absolutely.
It's kind of like when you get a good sample library or a good synth patch or something, and you play it, and all of these ideas just burst out of your head. That's the spark. And so you,
absolutely.
You mentioned the library that it was bonkers. How much leeway did they give you to be as creative and go kind of off-roading as much as you want, or was it a ton of revisions and back and forth?
No, absolutely not. They said basically, what do you want to make? Because we were pitching they said, we want you for a new album. What do you want to make? And basically, they said what I want to make, and I said, well, I don't want to do the solo piano with strings again because that's basically already done. I want to create this style of music that I just came up with this guy. And they said, well, how would that sound like? I said, no idea. let's have us figure this out. And they went for it. They gave us the budget, and they basically said, good luck, and we will hear everything when it's done. And then, sure, we had a couple of revisions, but nothing too bad. They basically let us very, very loose on the creative part of this album.
Yeah, and that's kind of the dream, isn't it? I mean, we start off making our dramedy cues. We start off doing our tension. We start off doing the things that they need and that they ask for, and we're responding to briefs. But I think the goal is to get to a point where a library says, hey, I love you, Jelle. I love you, Dave. And I love what you're about. And I love everything that you do, And so just whatever you want to write, we're gonna try to sell it, right? And we're gonna try to get it placed. And so I think that's the goal. That's what we're striving for.
Yeah, I think that will probably be the hardest part, to just sell it and make it usable for anything on television, because
that's their problem.
That's their job. So good luck with that.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be one of those things that it's not going to be for everybody, but for the person it is for, the project that it's going to be the absolute perfect fit. So I can't wait to hear about it, man. Definitely.
I mean, I think it will probably in the very first quarter of next year that we can release it or can announce it. but the library just wants to have it a little bit off from the public. I have some very close friends that I showed it, and they are really loving it. Maybe because they're my friends that just say, "Oh, we love it," and they just whatever. Yeah. No, I really think this is something new, something original, and something that actually hasn't been done before at all or very much. So I'm really curious to hear what people think of it.
Yeah, likewise. So I'll be keeping an eye on your Instagram to see when you let us know about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Here, as we kind of start wrapping up, first of all, I want to also give a shout out to Roy over at the Sync Gems podcast, who had you on his podcast. And if you want to know, a lot more about kind of Jelle's journey and his path into music, definitely check out that podcast. Roy, what is up? That's just for you, baby. So you can check out Sync Gems. It's a totally different vibe, and it is explicit. So just so you know, that's fine. I have my little my PG-13 lane over here, but it's Roy does a fantastic job. Easily one of my like top 5 podcasts that I listen to every time. So I just want to give him a shout out. So if you want to know a little bit more about Jelle's background and his journey into music, you can check that out. But the last thing I want to talk about today is your journey as a coach and a mentor, because I know that's super important to you, and it's also. Production music composers, I mean, we're super kind of servant-minded, we're always thinking about how can our music serve others. And so I've lost count the number of production music composers who have a heart for teaching. And that includes you as well.
Actually.
A lot of us love teaching. So talk about your journey into coaching and mentoring.
Well, actually, I'm still working on a voluntarily basis on my old school that I went to for special education, and I'm sometimes coaching children. I did coach a lot of children a couple of years ago, and basically doing that kind of work really fueled my ambition to coach other people, composers as well. Sorry. So basically, when I started out as a composer, I got introduced by the YouTube channel Sync My Music from Jesse Josephson, who is also an incredible coach for production music composers, just like you. And I was watching his videos, and I got some success in the industry. I was reacting on his videos, and we were just starting to get talking. And he invited me over for pro feedback to coach other composers as well. And I've been doing that now for a full year now. And it's been an absolute joy to see people grow when you give them feedback. I mean, it has been times that I gave feedback that I think that I didn't understand quite well, or that I even myself didn't understand quite well when I made that feedback. But there are a couple of composers like Justin Hellickson and Ben Yeo. When they started out with pro feedback, they are now composing for big trailer libraries like Hunchback Music in Hoofddorp next to Haarlem. The other one, Really Slow Motion, he's composing for that one as well. And it's really fun to see that when they came to you and they really needed to hear that what they did was right, that what they did was good. And it's the same for me. When I went to a demo day in Amsterdam for record labels, when they said that my music was good, that was such a confidence booster that I just could kick off my entire career from just that conversation with that guy. And it's so inspirational to see that basically I'm doing the same with these composers now, just giving them the confidence, or just saying to them that what you do is good, that your music is very good. And then they do something like that, going to a trailer label like Really Slow Motion and kick off their own career, is so inspiring to see as well for me as a coach as well. So I don't know if you recognize that.
Oh yeah, it seems really kind of cheesy to say like your success is my success, but it really is. When I get somebody that I've been coaching, and they get air, right, or they get placed in a library, and I get as excited as if it were my own, even though I don't necessarily have anything to like gain from their placement other than wow, it's super fulfilling. And that's how you know if somebody else's success fuels you, then that's how you know that you're cut out to do this.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's basically also what I want to do in the future, in the long term, in the next 5 or 10 years or so, is to build a studio here in the Netherlands and basically get these children that I'm working with on the school right now and get them into the studio, let them make music, let them share a little bit in the royalties so that they can get the taste for music. And maybe it won't be an ideal way for everyone, but just enabling them to give them the chance to try it out is already so much more that I can offer them than the most official institutions here in the Netherlands can give those people, because they are being treated as the lowest of the low. I've been treated as the lowest of the low with my autism. But just fighting back and just showing to the people, to the society, that you're so much more capable of doing things is something that I'm trying to do with my music as well. Trying to break through the stigma that people have about autism and giving other people the chance to do the same and to give them a perspective on a better future. As a coach, especially, is something that I'm really striving for the next couple of years.
Yeah, I can't think of anything more important than encouraging and pouring into children. Like, it's one thing to have like a coach of like a 50-year-old man, you know, from Las Vegas or whatever. That's cool. I love it. But being able to impart encouragement, hope, to children, especially children with special needs who have probably been marginalized and told what they can and can't do. And here you are, like, let's have a studio. Let's have you make music. Yeah,
absolutely. But it's not just a learning process for them, but it's also a learning process for yourself as a coach, because you may give them bad advice at some point. You cannot give them all the right advice at every time. So
and you don't know all the answers.
No, you don't know the answers at all. So you make mistakes as well, and you learn from those mistakes. And basically, being a coach is not only about learning others people stuff, but it's also about learning back from them. Which is something that I really find inspiring.
Yeah, if you want to learn a topic, try to teach it. That's the quickest way for you to learn.
That's the quickest way.
Yeah, and children are fearless. Like, they have nothing to lose, right? They're not necessarily like, I'm not going to make my mortgage.
And they're honest.
They're honest.
Completely honest. So if you're saying something weird, then they are quickly to point that out.
I knew I had to take care of my beard because I was just letting it go kind of wild and feral. But it was a child in a grocery store who just pointed at me and went, "Beard." Like, literally, that's what happened. I could tell you exactly where I was. I said, "Okay, Dave, that was a real kind of look at yourself in the mirror." And ever since then, I'm telling you, like, the next week, I went to a barber shop, and I've been getting it worked on ever since. But children are fearless and honest,
absolutely,
and especially children with special needs. And I think that's amazing. That's amazing, and I just wish you all the success with that. And you're right; it sharpens you. You know, teaching is as much about imparting wisdom as it is about receiving wisdom.
Yeah,
and I learn as much from my students as I do from like YouTube videos and all of that. Well, Jelle, it has been an absolute honor and a pleasure connecting with you today. We've been longtime kind of internet colleagues and virtual colleagues, but to be able to sit down and chat with you has been a real honor. And I hope to see you.
Likewise, man.
Yeah, I hope to see you in the at the PMC. I don't know if you'll make it in 2024, but
I will go there for the first time. So I've been to September this year in LA, and I hadn't had time to go to the PMC because I was in October. And I don't know if you know how expensive the hotels are in LA, but I could not make that gap from September to October in LA. So I'm going this year.
The reason I didn't go this year is because last year I went to the Taxi Road Rally and the PMC back to back. So I traveled twice to LA in 6 weeks, and that about broke the bank. So I totally understand.
Yeah.
Totally understand. Well, if folks want to follow you, how can they connect with you? I know you mentioned Sync My Music, and you're providing pro feedback over there, but how else can folks connect with you?
Well, basically, I have my website, jelledittmar.com, which has all the contact links to my Instagram, to my Facebook. Facebook, I don't use that much anymore, but I'm using a lot of Instagram, LinkedIn. I'm very accessible on LinkedIn. So it's Jelle Dittmar, JelleDittmar. So I'm sure you're going to send them the links in the description. I'm just spelling them out.
In case they're listening on the audio podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll have links to all of that, including links to the apprehension engine, so that you can check that out. But Jelle, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, man, for having me.
Once again, a huge word of thanks to Jelle for joining me on the podcast today. And as always, we're going to have his links in the description below, so be sure to check those out. Also, as always, a huge word of thanks to the family, friends, and neighbor subscribers of 52Qs who pay their actual real-life money to keep all of this going. You'll notice you didn't hear any embedded ads for mattresses, meal plans, or earbuds. And the reason that is because we are 100% supported by community-focused composers just like you, wanting to become better production and library music producers. So if this sounds like something you're interested in, then why don't you head over to 52qs.com and join us. It's free to sign up, and memberships start at around $4 a month. You definitely want to tune in next week, where we're going to talk about superpowers. See, I believe that instead of us production music folks focusing on what's hot or where the trends are and what libraries are writing, we should focus on what we do best and work out how we can translate that to what libraries need. So next week, we're going to talk about uncovering and discovering your superpower. And we're going to announce our next composer quest. You definitely want to tune in next week for that. But that is going to do it for me this week for week 16. I hope that you've had a stellar week, and I know that you're going to have an amazing week 17. How do I know that, friends? Because I trust and believe that the universe has amazing plans just for you. Until next time, peace. The 52Qs podcast is copyright 2024 818 Studios, all rights reserved. The music played on the podcast is copyright of their respective owners and is used with permission and for educational purposes only. For more information, including joining the community or becoming a member subscriber of 52Qs, head over to 52qs.com.